Starting live video. Oh. Right. Hello everyone. I'm Sophie Cook, and downstairs we have live music. Anyway, everyone out there in Facebook land, yeah, some people have just come up and they've just gone out the fire exit even though they're not supposed to. And, yeah. What can you do, eh? You know what, you just amuse. Anyway, yeah, hi. 3 years ago, I was stood on the pitch at Cheltenham Athletics Ground in the Valley as the football club that I'd supported my entire life, AFC Bournemouth, got promoted to the Premier League. This was the greatest day in the history of our club. I mean, my good friend Jeff at the back there, show him your shirt, Jeff. Strip off. Any excuse to get a boy to take his clothes off. You know, wearing his Bournemouth shirt. Has he got Cook on the back? See, he's even got Cook on. I could say that's for me, but actually it's for Steve Cook, who plays for Bournemouth. So there I am, sitting on the pitch. It's the greatest day in the history of our football club. Football fans talk about the Premier League as being the dream, but actually for Bournemouth fans, the Premier League wasn't the dream. Our dream was to actually just still have a football club the next season. I remember the days when we'd go out in the squares with buckets, getting coins off people just so that the football club wasn't put into administration. So the idea of us going to the Premier League was unheard of. And I'm stood there on the pitch, right at the centre of celebrations, being sprayed by footballers with champagne, which sounds so much cooler than it actually is. In reality, it's icky and sticky and buggers up your camera gear. And like I said, this was the greatest day in the history of my club. And yet I'm stood there right at the centre of the celebrations, and I was terrified. I was terrified because I knew that summer I was going to tell them something that I thought would end my career in football. I've known that I was transgender since I was about 7 years old. I remember going on a family holiday to a holiday park in South Wales. And we got there, we all piled out in my mum and dad's Ford Anglia, which for those that are younger than me, which is a good proportion of you, is the car from Harry Potter. It's a real car, it doesn't fly. So by the time we'd driven all the way from Bournemouth to South Wales, I think my parents were sick and tired of the two kids in the back of the car. Of course, this was 1974, and good parenting was a bottle of Coke and a packet of crisps. So we got there, and my mum and dad cleared off to the bar. My brother went off to play football all week. And at 7 years old, I went off to meet these kids that I'd never met before and I was never going to see again. And I went up to them and I went, "Hi, I'm Jenny." And all week I was Jenny. And at the end of the week, my parents came out. No, they fed us in the meantime. They hadn't just. But my parents were there. We're piling all the luggage into this Ford Anglia that's already riding on its springs. And these kids went up and said, "Bye, Jenny." And my parents looked at me kind of funny. And I went, "Weirdos, they've been doing that all week, absolutely no idea what they're talking about." But like I say, this was the mid-1970s. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have LGBT role models. We certainly didn't have trans role models. In fact, the only time you'd ever see trans people in the press was when one of the Sunday papers was crucified. And because of that, at the age of 12, I tried to take my own life for the first time. And the music downstairs is really good, isn't it? Especially. Anyway, I'm easily distracted. Focus. Anyway, so. Anyway, Facebook, yeah, good, really good band. So, yeah, I just felt so isolated and so alone. I had no idea what was going on with me. I truly thought I was the only person that had ever felt this way. And I think your friends have arrived. Anyway, for everyone out there in Facebook, some people have just turned up really late. Apparently, about 20 minutes ago, they were 10 minutes away, but yeah.
If it helps, I left work early and we rushed out in rush hour traffic from Gatwick to Brighton.
That helps, but a pint of Kronenberg helps even more. Lovely to see you. Thanks for coming all the way down from Gatwick, which for those of you in Facebook land is like it's about 5 miles away from Brighton, but takes like 6 hours. At the age of 16, I joined the Royal Air Force. I was third generation Air Force. My dad had been a technician on Phantoms back in the 1970s, and my granddad had been out in Burma during the war. So I'd been brought up on stories of what it was like to be in the Air Force. And at the age of 18, I was posted to a tornado squadron in Norfolk. And one sunny August afternoon, I was walking between a couple of aircraft shelters and I heard a bang. And I immediately, just like that, special effects and everything. I immediately went to the source of the noise, and there'd been an explosion on one of the aircraft. And a colleague of mine who was 19 years old had lost his arm in this explosion. I was the first person there. I was 18 years old, and I put a tourniquet on it and saved his life. Now, despite the fact that the Air Force had had like 100 years of dealing with people with post-traumatic stress and what they used to call shell shock and all this, they seem to have no idea what to do with me. In fact, the first thing they did was they shipped me out to Germany, which I think they were thinking, right, let's take them away from the source of the pain. But actually what they were doing was they were taking me away from my support network. So there I am, I'm 18 years old, I'm stationed in Germany, still transgender because it doesn't just get better on its own. Post-traumatic stress, self-harming, suicidal, and using alcohol to try and mask the pain. And I just want to read you a little section from my book, which is called Not Today, How I Chose Life, and it's available from the website if you're at www.sophiecook.me/book. You lot can pay me now, but you can go on the website. See, I don't take anything seriously. Right. So this is me, 18 years old, stationed in Germany. As I look around the bar, the noise inside my head becomes unbearable. The pain washes over and engulfs me. People's faces become pinpoints in the distance as I retreat deep within, trying to block out their voices. I turn and head unobserved towards the toilets at the rear of the bar, skirting the pools of light thrown by the lamps above the tables laden with drinks. Once inside, I lock the cubicle door and slump down to the seat, the weight of my pain seemingly drawing me down, crushing me, diminishing me and making me smaller. I reach inside my jacket pocket and pull out my wallet. Inside, hiding amongst the Deutschmarks, is the tool with which I will sate my pain. The razor blade catches the light from the single bare bulb above my head as I turn it over in my hand, feeling the symbolic power of release that resides within it. I look down at my wrists. The skin looks so thin, diaphanous, barely covering the vein that lies beneath. So fragile, so vulnerable, so easy to defile with the blade's cold edge. I sense that the pressure that needs release does not reside there. The darkness lies deep within me, hidden, somehow impenetrable. I move my gaze up my arm, coming to rest on my forearm as I carefully and deliberately roll up the sleeve of my shirt. I bring the blade up, using it to caress the skin before bringing it down in a rapid pass across the flesh. I feel an instant burn of pain, then nothing. A moment passes and then a thin, Scarlet line appears. As I watch, the line seems to swell outward and then spread slightly as the line becomes liquid and flows across the pale flesh of my arm. I watch all of this as if watching an abstraction. I do not feel connected to what I see. This is not my arm, my flesh, my blood. I feel no pain from the wound. The physical pain is but an attempt to give form and meaning to the emotional and mental pain that is tormenting my mind. The blade comes down for a second time. The red line makes a neat cross with the first, then again and again. 2 scarlet crosses mark the skin. I close my eyes and take a deep breath, my nostrils and lungs filling with the stale smell of human waste and disinfectant. I rest, searching for a stillness within myself. Feeling the release, I roll down my sleeve, oblivious to the blood which is staining the dark material with the deepest black, and, standing to leave, I return the blade to its resting place within my wallet. As I re-enter the bar, the world is exactly as I left it. The pool players deliberate over a shot. A couple relax an intimate joke in a booth, and my colleagues greet me at the bar with a refrain of, "Get the drinks in, it's your round." I did my 3 years in Germany, came back, and when I left the Air Force I went out to Saudi Arabia for 7 years. If you've never been to Saudi Arabia, don't bother. It's not the sort of place you visit for fun. The thing is that was my life for the next 2 decades. Sort of self-harming, suicidal feelings. And when I came back from Saudi Arabia in '98, I'd started to work out what my gender identity actually meant. And I went on to see the doctor, and I got referred up to the gender identity clinic in London, and they put me on hormones, and I started to transition back in around 98, 2000. And then my partner got pregnant. And the plan was that our child would have 2 mothers from the day they were born, which back in 2000 was unheard of, especially if one of them was trans. But everywhere I went at the time, I got so much abuse. I remember getting abused in my doctor's waiting room, and my GP's response was, "Well, you chose to do this, so you're going to have to get used to it." Which, first of all, shows that he knows nothing about being trans, because you certainly don't choose it. And secondly, he had no empathy as a human being. On the day that my son was born, he had a massive seizure, and we nearly lost him. And as a result of that seizure, he ended up disabled. And I remember holding this tiny little baby in my hands and thinking, I can't put this child through the abuse and the pain that I'm getting every single day. His life is already going to be hard enough without all of my crap piled on top of it. He was my baby boy. He meant everything to me. So I took Sophie and I murdered her and I buried her for 15 years. Now imagine what it's like taking something that's so intrinsically a part of who you are. Whether it's your gender identity, your sexuality, your religion, a love of football, any of these things, not just not do it, but deny that it ever existed. And every single day for the next 15 years I thought about suicide. And I just want to read you another bit from the book. The trees flash past my open window, creating a strobe effect on my face, as the rays of the setting sun are momentarily blocked by their leaves. Ahead of me, the road meanders gently through the villages of the New Forest to home. Primal scream come on the stereo, asking the existential question, just what is it that you want to do? Indeed, what do you want to do? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 5 months, 5 weeks, 5 minutes? We want to be free. We want to be free to do what we want to do. and we want to get loaded, and we want to have a good time. The horns of the song fill the car with joyous music, celebrating life and love and getting loaded. It all sounds great. Today has been a good day, and now I'm on the way home to my family. I sing along to the song. I'm going to get deep down, deep down. Do you now? Do you really want to get loaded? I don't know. I don't look, but I know he's there. My ears don't hear the words, but there they are inside my head. I feel his dark presence beside me, there, but not there. A black void that swallows all hope and joy. But you're not really happy, are you? They would be so much better off without you. His sibilant speech cuts through me like a diamond and glass, destroying my will and draining my strength. You don't deserve to be happy. You don't deserve love, and you certainly don't deserve them. He has always been with me, reminding me of my worthlessness, keeping my feet grounded in quicksand every time that happiness tried to enter my life. From that day in my parents' garage at age 12, when I first tried to take my own life, he was there, beside me, encouraging me to tie the knot. When I cut myself in the toilets of the German bar, he was in the next cubicle, whispering to me under the partition, asking me if the person whose life I saved really would have been better off without me saving his life, asking if life really was better than death. The pain is too great for you to carry. He makes a compelling argument. Don't you wish that it would just end? I do. I do want the pain to end. It seems like I've carried this weight of pain inside my heart since before I can remember. I'm tired, so tired of fighting to survive. To die, to sleep perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil. Quoting Hamlet is a low blow, I think, but he has a point. The dreams that elude us in life may be possible in death, and only then might I be free. You don't even need to do anything, he suggests. All you have to do is not do. Take your hands off the steering wheel, close your eyes, and be at peace. The words are persuasive, offering a way out, a respite from the pain, a salvation. As the forest speeds past the window, the sun beginning to set to the west, I close my eyes and take my hands off the steering wheel, immediately feeling the release. Seconds stretch to minutes, then hours and years. Each breath lasts an eternity. Suddenly the demon's hypnotic words are gone, replaced by the giggling, smiling face of my baby boy, my love, my world, my everything. Fear returns, as does pain, and my eyes snap open, hands grasping at the wheel, frantically searching for control of the vehicle. The car swerves, narrowly missing a road sign, careering from one curb to the other before I can bring the car to a halt in a lay-by, wheels skidding and gravel flying as I force the brake pedal to the floor. My demon has left me for now, returning to the deepest, darkest corners of my mind where he lives, glorifying my despair and pain, waiting for his next opportunity to torment me. I begin to cry, deep, painful sobs coming from deep within my soul as I grasp the steering wheel, knuckles white, clinging to life, a drowning man holding onto a lifebelt by his fingertips. My head slumps forwards onto the top of the wheel. Exhaustion washes over me. I don't know how much longer I can do this. Instinctively knowing that I'm being watched, I turn my head, and there beside my open window is a large black eye inspecting me, asking questions of me. The calm, inquisitive face of a pony, his muzzle inches from the window, showing real concern for me. Thanks, I say. Yes, I know. Time to go home. I was just struggling with this. I had no control about when these feelings came. I thought that my life was going in the right direction, but this pain was always there. It was always niggling away at me, trying to chisel away on me. And then, in April 2015, And of all places to have my epiphany moment, I was in the Hotel Ibis budget in Bradford. A place where I'm sure many a weary traveller has looked out the window and gone, where the hell did my life go wrong? I was up there for a couple of football matches because the Football League and the Football Association are really clever. What they do is they take a team like Bournemouth and they give you a match against Doncaster Rovers on a Saturday and a match against Leeds United on a Wednesday. Like 2 600-mile journeys in foot. It's like, thanks guys, cheers, yeah. And so I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to stay out there. And I'm sat there in an Ibis budget and I'm looking out the window and snow, well, say snow, there's this grey, horrible, mucky slush on the ground, dual carriageway, railway lines, Bradford City's ground up on the hill. And this light bulb went off in my head. And I just thought to myself, that's why you hate yourself so much. And I went into town, and I bought some clothes, and I bought some makeup, and I bought a wig. And the pain just stopped. And I thought to myself, is that all it takes to stop wanting to die? But of course it wasn't. Because then what I had to do was I actually had to go home and effectively take a hand grenade and throw it into my life and see where all the pieces landed. So I went back and I sat down with my wife, who'd been with me back in 2000. I said to her, told her that I had to transition. She said, well, I knew it was going to come back. And then I had to think about telling my kids. Now, my daughter at the time was 11 years old. So of course she knew all about the Kardashians. I, myself, still don't know who they are, and I still can't work out what they do. If anyone knows, please send me the answer on a postcard, because I have. So anyway, she started asking questions about Caitlyn Jenner. And my wife said to me, she's asking all these questions, do you think we should tell her? Well, I'm one of these people that if I see an opportunity, I go for it, because you never ever know when it's going to come again. So I think within about an hour, I'd sat down with the kids. Now, having me as a parent, they weren't brought up with strict gender roles. They were free to do whatever they wanted. My son, because of his disability, he didn't speak till he was 5. His first word was car. He's still obsessed with cars, toy cars, car books. Even watched Top Gear, despite the fact it was presented by Jeremy Clarkson. Although I think he likes James May more. It's a bit of shit. Anyway. And my daughter was always fascinated by dance and makeup and beauty and acting and all these sort of things. And I sat down with him and I said, you know the way you always knew you were a boy and you always knew you were a girl? Well, it wasn't like that for me. And it caused me so much pain. And I've always known that I was a woman. And so I told them that I was going to transition. And then my daughter went through all the 5 stages of grief in about 10 minutes. So she started off with denial. She did denial. I was like, and then she tried to do reasoning. And eventually she got through to acceptance. And I knew she got to acceptance because she asked me what was in my makeup bag. A question that she's only just stopped asking me now, 3.5 years later, because the answer was always the same. I'm 50 years old, it's the same 5 products that were in here last time. Because let's face it, when you're 50, you find 5 products where you don't. She's got all these drawers of makeup that's all categorised in things. I've now got a makeup drawer that's all categorised, basically because she goes through hers, comes to mine and goes, do you want this? And I go, so she puts it in a drawer that's all categorised. Then next time she comes, she goes through the door and goes, do you want this? And I go, you gave that to me last time. It's like, yeah, help yourself. I think my daughter's now using me as an off-site storage area for the stuff my mum tells her to get rid of. So yeah, I'm like the Amazon warehouse of my daughter's makeup. But so I managed to tell the kids, and my son's reaction was brilliant. And I remember one point we were out in the back garden and he was leaning over the fence to talk to the neighbours, and he just went, "Daddy's a lady." That's right, they already knew he wasn't out. And the interesting thing is that, see, these were the two people that were sort of were closest to my transition. And my kids never misgender me. So many people in the world misgender me, and they never knew me before, and they still managed to misgender me. The funny thing is that, well, it's not. As part of my son's got epilepsy, and sometimes that leads to anger issues, and you can get angry and you can get abusive and can sort of be very, very rude towards you. But the funny, even at that point, he never ever misgenders me, which I find really interesting. But then I had to think about the rest of the world, and Bournemouth were pushing for promotion to the Premier League at that time. I thought, if I come out now and the players form deals, I'm going to get the blame, because football fans will latch onto anything. If there's a reason they can find for why the team they were doing well, now they're doing badly. It's like, I don't want to be the reason we can get the Premier League. So I started living this double life. I'd moved down here by this point. So I remember back in the 90s, there was one of these terrible TV adverts. I think it was for an insurance company or something. And there was all these people and their hobbies. So there was, I don't know, there was a builder that went fishing, and there was a carpenter that played a guitar, and there was an accountant who at weekends was Debbie. I was doing the same sort of thing. So during the week I was Sophie in Brighton, and at weekends I was going back to football matches and pretending to be Steve. Except that people noticed that something had changed. First thing that happened is I lost 5 stone in 4 months, because I actually started caring about myself for the first time in my life. I got both my ears pierced, which even in the blingy world of professional football got noticed. And I started to smile. And I don't think anyone had ever seen me smile before. And then we got promoted. And I was down here, and one Friday afternoon I went to see my hairdresser in Hove about getting hair extensions. And she said to me, "I can do it now for you if you want." And as we've already established, I sort of, if I see an opportunity, I go for it. And I'm all about instant gratification. So it's like, God, yes, get them in. Which was great, until about half an hour later, when I suddenly thought, bugger, I've got to take photos of footballers on Monday morning, and I can't really pretend to still be Steve. They're going to wonder how the fat, bald bloke became this vision of loveliness. Why are you laughing at that? I am a vision of loveliness.
You are.
Thank you, darling. Big round of applause for the gentleman in the audience. See, if you weren't already taken, I'd be taking you. I really am that easy. But so I'm there, and it's like the fitness hair extensions, and I'm like, if you're in internet land, I'm not really swearing. Is it still working?
Yeah.
Am I still on the internet? Hello, people watching.
You're in stereo, you're on here as well.
Oh, hello, people watching. Hello, people watching. I'll keep my clothes on, promise. I thought, I've got to tell the football club. So all Friday afternoon, I'm trying to get hold of the football club, and I'm emailing my boss out of office, ringing him, no answer. Bugger. Eventually, he rang me back, Friday tea time from a family barbecue. I'm sat in my car on my ex's drive. She's banging on the window and waving at me, and I'm going, I'm on the phone. She knew I was on hands-free, she could hear every word. as could the entire street. So I came out to the entire street at the same time I came out to the football. Saved me a job. And he says, what's the matter? I went, I'm really sorry to do this to you at family barbecue, but I've got to tell you something before Monday morning. He said, what's that? I went, I'm transgender. And he went really quiet. Now the funny thing is, I gave one of these talks at the football club about a year later, and he was sat in the audience. Made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. But he came up to me afterwards, he said, do you remember what I said next? I went, not really, I was sort of freaking out a little bit at that point. He said, because you lost so much weight so quickly, and because it's so urgent you tell us, we all thought you were dying. So when you told me, I went, oh, is that all? So there you go. Premier League Football Club says it's better to be transgender than dying. So it was arranged for me to go in for a meeting at the football club. And we're there in the owner's box overlooking the pitch. And there's the chairman of the football club, there's the commercial director, there's the head of media, there's the general manager of the club, there's Eddie Howe, our first team manager. Be still my beast and heart test. For the internet, there is a member of the audience swooning over Eddie Howe. I don't know that Eddie knows this, but there's lots of ladies that swoon over him. And our assistant manager, Jason Tyndall. And me, in my pencil skirt and heels, looking absolutely fabulous. First time they'd ever met Sophie. Pretty sure it's the first time they'd ever met a trans woman. I think they were all expecting David Williams to walk in and go, Emily! So I like to think I was a little bit classier than that. And the first thing that happened was I actually still had a job, which really surprised me. And then Eddie Howe, our manager, turned around to me and he said, what can I do to make this easier for you? And the thing is, when you come out, you can't expect everyone to understand straight away. But if your boss says, what can I do to make this easier for you, you can't ask for any more. And I said to him, well, I need to meet the players before a match day. The first time they see me can't be as if running down the tunnel and they suddenly go, oh, cooking through boots. So I went in for a training session, and the boys were all off warming up. And Eddie Howe came up to me and said, are you scared? I said, you know what, for the first time in my life, I'm totally at ease with who I am. So no, I'm not scared. And they called all the players together in a circle, and our assistant manager, Jason Tyndall, stood up and went, suppose you notice our photographer's changed a bit since last season. Growing her hair out, I'd like you to meet Sophie. And then our captain, Tommy Elphick, ex-Brighton lad, just started clapping, and the rest of the players joined in. And then Tommy says, right, let's go and train. And I'm stood there and I'm like, what's that? I built this up so much in my head. I expected rainbows and unicorns, maybe red arrows flying past, at least a marching band. But it's like, here's the new piece of information, we've got it, now let's move on. And the reality is, when somebody comes out, that's all it is, it's a new piece of information. And yet so many people that aren't directly affected by it feel that they have the right to judge and express an opinion. In fact, one of the best reactions to me coming out was someone that I went to school with. And now, I'm now really old. I'm 26. Before. So I left school at 16, so 10 years ago. I hadn't seen this guy in 30 years. And he sent me a message just after I came out, and he went, well, I'm now wondering how much of my childhood was just a lie. And I went, way to go, making it all about you, yeah. But people feel that they've got the right to express an opinion. And so I told the football club and I came out and it was all going well. And then of course I had to go back to a match. Now, I had friends that didn't want me to go back to football. They said to me, you are going to be verbally abused, you are going to be physically abused, you're not going to be safe. And I remember that first game, I stood there in the car park, sat there in my car in the car park, checking my reflection and making sure my hair and my makeup's all spot on. thinking, right, you wanted this, you got it, now you've got to go and do it. And I remember walking into the media lounge. I'm walking into this room which is full of journalists. And the first thing I noticed was that nobody noticed. And it's like, really? And I went through and sat by the side of the pitch and started taking photos. And nothing. It wasn't really until my story broke in the tabloids a couple of months later, actually on my 49th birthday, so yeah, that's a good present. You got splashed all over the tabloids. But it was only when that broke that people actually started to know my story. And there was one friend, and they said to me, yeah, we wondered what happened. I mean, I remember last season seeing Steve sat down there on the touchline, and then this season there was a different photographer there, and we thought, I wonder what happened to Steve? And after my story was in the papers, people would come up to me and hug me and shake my hand and say, I'm so glad you can be happy, I'm so glad you can be you. I remember one game we were playing Man City, and I'm there just before kick-off, getting all my gear and my laptop and my camera's ready, and this woman runs all the way down from the back of the stand, which at Bournemouth isn't very far. And she taps me on the shoulder and she goes, you look amazing. And it's like, oh, thanks. But that's the amount of love and support that I got from all the people in football. In fact, not long after that, I spoke at Wembley Stadium. And just before I went on, I'm looking out at the pitch, and I just turned around to the guy from the FA and I went, if I'd known it was this easy to get invited to posh things at Wembley, I'd have come out as trans years ago. But I've had so much amazing support in football. From fans, from players, from management, from the authorities. I'm an ambassador for Kick It Out, which is the anti-discrimination football charity. And I'm so proud to do that because they're 25 years old this year. And they've done so much great work over the last 25 years. And they're ambassadors of normal bloody footballers. I'm a nobody that used to take photos on a touchline who just happens to be trans. So all these amazing things have happened. And then one night I was sat in my bed in Hove, just waiting to go to sleep. And for young people, don't go on devices near bedtime, right? You're not supposed to. Don't. If you're young people and you're watching this on Facebook, another half hour and then turn it off. But so I'm sat there in bed and I'm checking my messages, and all of a sudden a message popped up on Facebook Messenger. And I thought, it was from the guy whose life I'd saved in the Air Force 30 years earlier. The last I'd heard about him was that he'd actually taken his own life because of his injuries. And there I am, sat in my bed in Hove, Sophie, and this message pops up on my computer. I never got to thank you for saving my life. Emotions threatened to overwhelm me. All those years of questioning whether I'd done the right thing in saving his life. All of those years of guilt, shame and post-traumatic stress. The message from Andy Harris had come totally out of the blue. I hadn't heard anything for 30 years, and the latest news was a vague report that he'd taken his life due to the injuries that he sustained in that explosion all those years ago. Over the years, I'd searched the burgeoning internet for any mention of his name, and it always came up blank. No mentions, no profiles on any of the social networks. It was as if he died before the internet age had begun. I've got a son and 2 daughters that wouldn't be here if you hadn't saved my life. Not one life saved, but 4. 3 people that would never have existed. Children and grandchildren, the past and the future. Never before had the enormity of that moment dawned on me outside of our pain, Andy and I, linked by trauma. As we talked, it became clear why I'd never found him on the internet. He had one of the least digital jobs it was possible to have in the always connected online virtual world that was the early parts of the 21st century. He was a gamekeeper in Cumbria. Spending his days on the moors with dogs and guns and hunters. I was a transgender socialist TV presenter and had nothing in common except for that one terrible life-altering moment in 1985. We shared the stories of our lives, how the explosion and subsequent trauma had shaped us over the years, the post-traumatic stress taking its toll as surely as the flying shrapnel had. On the 30th anniversary of the incident, he had joined Facebook in order to contact me, and through a circuitous route, through Steve to Sophie, he'd finally found me. The question for me was, when would I find me? I spent a lifetime suicidal. I spent a lifetime self-harming. I thought that peace would come when I transitioned, when I became the person that I was truly meant to be. But just at that moment, I went from being suicidal because I wasn't me, to being suicidal because I was alone. I'd lost a 20-year relationship. My family didn't speak to me anymore. And I was just lost. I was lost and alone. I was here and I was still struggling with my mental health. I was still struggling with my feelings of self-harm and my feelings of suicide. And then, in an effort to explain it to myself, I came up with this philosophy to try and put it all into perspective, to try and make it all just work in my head. And the philosophy was, I know that one day I'll kill myself because I don't know how to stop feeling this way, but it won't be today. And in the meantime, I'm going to do the best I can to enjoy every single day. And then on the day that I die, in many, many years' time, I'll look back and realise that I didn't get around to doing it. And that's why I've got Not Today tattooed on my wrist. That's why my book's called Not Today. Because what that did was that gave me permission to have those days when I felt suicidal. I had no control over when that feeling came, but I had control about how it made me feel. One of the problems about being in that really dark, lonely place is that you heap guilt and shame on top of those feelings, and they magnify its ability to hurt you. This gave me permission to have those days that I had no control over without feeling guilty or shameful for. The other part of it is that I knew that I was never actually going to do it. Because I know that suicide isn't the end. All suicide does is take your pain and give it to someone else. And I couldn't do that to my kids. I couldn't destroy my children's lives with my pain. It's my pain, it's mine to carry. I also know that the feeling will pass, because it always does. I first felt suicidal at the age of 12. A month ago I was 52. So that's 40 years of feeling suicidal. And every single time I had that feeling, it passed. Whether it was later that day, whether it was next day, whether it was the day after. But it always passed. So Not Today just allowed me to move beyond that point where I felt suicidal. And the funny thing is, by allowing myself to have those days, they became less frequent because I wasn't beating myself up over it. And in fact, in writing my book, Sophie Cook, Not Today, How Shows Life, available on the internet, I managed to sort of come to terms with it in a way that I never thought would be possible. I just want to read you a little bit more from the book. I close my eyes and lean back against the rocks as the last rays of the sun begin to lose their warmth and a chill passes through me. The waves churn the pebbles of the beach as the tide recedes away from the land. I was only ever looking out for you. darkness beside me gently intones. He's there, but respectful, keeping his distance. I saw your pain, I saw your unhappiness, and I needed to help. I feel no fear as he talks to me. There is no malice in his voice, only concern. I wanted you to be free of pain. I know. I wanted you to have a way out. There were times when you were my only friend, when I was so alone that you were the only person there to hold me, I replied. I wanted you to be free. I know, but I don't need you to do that anymore. I will deal with the pain. I will find my path. I want to live. The void beside me grows slightly, reaching out towards me, testing the air around me before retreating. I'll always be here. If ever the pain gets too great and you need me, I will be here, watching and waiting. I know. When I came out, I was terrified that I was going to lose everything. I was terrified that I was going to lose my career. I was terrified that I was going to lose my family. And I lost a lot. It was hard. It's been a really painful, difficult journey. But you know what? It's only after we've lost everything that we are free to do anything. Losing everything actually sets us free. The things that we own end up owning us. We work jobs that we hate to buy money, to buy things that we don't need. We change ourselves as people to keep relationships that aren't healthy for us. We spend all our time trying to be someone to please someone, or even trying to please ourselves. Sometimes people tell me that I'm inspirational, and you know what? That always makes me a little bit sad, because I'm not. I'm nothing special. I'm just me. I'm just me trying to be who I am. And in fact, it breaks my heart a little bit that someone trying to be themselves is seen as inspirational. Because I think trying to be yourself should be the default position for everyone. And I think it's a sorry statement on society that just by being true to yourself, you're seen as different. When I came out, people kept telling me that I was brave. But you know what? I didn't feel brave. I just felt like me. And at that point I realised, you know what? I'm not the brave one. Steve was the brave one. Steve was the person who woke up every single day wishing that they were dead and managed to hold it together long enough for me to be here. I mean, he did amazing things in his life. He saved that person's life. He did so many things, and yet all the time, all he wanted to do was die. And I wrote a poem to him. Because the thing is, I now have a relationship with Steve that unfortunately he could never have. I have a love for him that unfortunately that poor, tortured soul could never have for himself. And I wrote this poem to him. This is the hug that I'd like to give to the brave man who went before, who suffered for years filled with self-loathing and pain, whose bravery and strength meant that I could one day emerge to dance in the rain. He was the brave one. He took the pain. He suffered in silence so I could dance in the rain. He kept me safe, hidden inside. He paid the price, now I feel the pride. He had the strength to fight to the end. He was my hero. Thank you, my friend. And in June 2015, I posted that poem on social media. And my then 11-year-old daughter, who I'd been terrified of losing when I transitioned, in the space of 2 sentences, summed up the power of being authentic and the power of being true to yourself. And she just wrote, "You're my hero. Steve was great, but Sophie's better." Thank you, everyone. Has anyone got any questions?
Of course.
Yeah, £15 available online. www.sophiecook.me.uk/book. Yeah. Cash or card.
I've heard you say that thing before about the inspiration, because I think you're inspirational.
Thank you, darling.
I think your bravery is remarkable, and I think your ability to confront life head on is also remarkable. And I don't agree with you that it's sad that people think you're inspirational, because I think you're inspirational. And if you could harness that somehow, I don't know how, that there are so many...
What about write books and do stuff like this?
That's a start. But we need people like you. Especially now, we live in such appalling times of TERFs and rabid trans folk, that we really, really, really need people like you who are brave enough and to confront these people head on. So I think you're inspirational.
Thank you. I mean, you've raised the point there about the anti-trans bigots who say that they're being silenced and yet have the platform of the entire national press. I've just got one thing to say. Human rights are not a nil-sum equation. The rights of one group do not come at the cost of another group. Black rights did not come at the cost of white rights. Gay rights did not come at the cost of straight rights. Women's rights did not come at the cost of men's rights. And trans rights don't come at the cost of women's rights. Human rights are all that matters. And this idea that, you know what, I want equality for me but not for you, that's not equality. That's privilege. And when you start dictating who can and can't have rights and who is and isn't a valid person, then you're part of the problem, not the solution. And we see that with the sort of people they're allying themselves with the alt-right religious groups in America, the pro-lifers and all this stuff. Like, you do realise that you're supposed to be feminists, and you're allying yourselves with people that would be more than happy to destroy all women's rights. I know so many women that are utterly supportive of trans rights. I know so many lesbians that are utterly supportive of trans rights. I do work with women's shelters, and every single women's shelter I know is trans inclusive. Prejudice comes from two different places. Prejudice either comes from a lack of education and awareness, or it comes from hate. People that don't have the education and awareness, you can help. I mean, in the generation we grew up in, there was so much homophobia because no one knew gay people. And now most people in the country will know a gay person. And that homophobia is reducing, apart from the people that still insist on being prejudiced purely because of hate reasons. And we're starting to see the same with trans people. All the time that trans people are seen as different and not part of society, then the hate exists. One of the problems that we had is, for so many generations, trans people weren't out. Because they had to be, partly for their own safety, and partly there was this idea that after you transition, you're no longer trans. And I've been told by some trans people who've transitioned and go, oh, you trans activists, you're trying to out all of this. Well, first of all, I'm not a trans activist, I'm an equality activist. And secondly, you know what, you live your life however you want. I'm not going to out anyone. If you want to do that, you do that. But don't you think that life would have been easier if there was more out people actually presenting a positive image when you transition? Now, gay rights only move. You're right there, Elsa. That was the gin. So I'll carry on a minute. Gay rights only moved on when gay people started saying, I'm out and I'm proud. And the same thing needs to happen with trans people. For too long, trans people have been hiding in the shadows or been pushed into the shadows. The only way trans rights are going to move forward is by some gobby trans people standing up and going, you know what, I'm trans and I'm proud. And that's it. I'm not ashamed of my journey. I remember at the start of my transition, the thing is, trans people have this concept called passing, which means that you walk down the street and no one knows you're trans. I see passing as a different form of closet. At the start of my transition, I wasn't the person I am now. At the start of my transition, I would walk down the road like this. Don't see me, please don't see me, please don't see me. And you know what? When you walk down the road like that, everyone sees you. Because you don't look like you belong. And not only do you look out of place, you also look weak. And when you look weak, bullies feel emboldened. When you walk down the road like you own the bloody place, they ain't got the balls to have a go there. I get very, very little abuse on the streets nowadays. All of my abuse is online. I've had death threats on Twitter. I was on Newsnight at the end of last year, and with the narrow the show going out, I had 1,000 abusive messages on Twitter. The hate's there, but the thing is, when you walk down the street, if you look strong, confident, proud of who you are, you get left alone. And it's a sorry state of affairs that actually how strong or vulnerable you are dictates whether you're going to be abused on our streets. But it just sums up bullies that it's all about power. And to go back to, see, this is a very long answer to a very short question. Go back to the thing about trans women and some of the arguments that are put about trans women. The idea that trans women are only trans so they can gain access to women's spaces. Now, the thing is, first of all, sexual assault and rape isn't about gender. Sexual assault and rape is about power and entitlement. It's about someone else feeling that they are entitled to your body without your consent. If someone's a sexual abuser or a rapist, they don't need to be trans to gain access to women's spaces because they already have the sense of entitlement that they could just walk straight in there and do whatever they wanted. Secondly, if you basically say, well, trans women are at risk because they have or have in the past had male genitals, and therefore they could potentially be a sexual predator risk. Effectively, what you're doing then is boiling the argument about whether someone's a sexual predator down to their genitals, rather than them being an abuser. So what you're doing effectively is saying, well, you know what, it's not their fault, they're a penis. Of course they're a sexual predator, it's like, per. Which takes away all of the responsibility for their actions from the people that actually are sexual predators. Also, actually, you know what, when you say, well, you know what, trans people, yeah, I mean, you know what, they might be sexual predators because they have or have previously had male genitals. Now, imagine that sentence where you replace the word trans with the word black or the word Jew. Would you then say that sentence was bigoted? And for me, that's a test. If there's a statement about a group of people and you replace one group with a different group, does it look bigoted? Trans women are a danger to girls and women. Muslim men are a danger to trans girls and women, to girls and women. Well, you know what? That's just looking like racism. So, of course, well, the bit about trans people is obviously prejudice as well. You can't point a finger at an entire group of people and say they're responsible for this. There you go. That's my big answer. Anyone else?
I
came down at 3 months.
All day and all night, you're dedicated.
Well, there were days when I wrote for like 10 hours straight. There were other days, especially when I was writing the really difficult, dark mental health stuff, where I'd write for half an hour, and then go and spend the rest of the day sat on the beach, just trying to cleanse my aura. I'm not really an aura sort of person, but if I had one, it would have needed a bit of cleansing. In fact, my lifestyle probably means it needs cleansing anyway, but there you go. Anyone else?
I've had a comment, it's not a question. I think that message of that if you have those dark thoughts, they will pass, and you know that because you have experienced that, them coming and going, is a really important message for anybody that is in those dark places, and that kind of knowing that just because you feel something now doesn't mean you will always feel it is a really, really healthy and strong place to be, to move on. Exactly,
and I'm an ambassador for a children's mental health charity here in Sussex called the Hope Charity Project. And HOPE stands for Hold On, Pain Ends. And I think that's the important thing to remember. This afternoon I was recording a young people's LGBT show in here, and one of the questions that they asked me and the other guest was, what would you tell the younger version of yourself? And it's like, the thing is, when you're young, you don't have that experience. If you have those dark days, you don't know that it's going to get better because you haven't got the experience. I've got 40 years experience of feeling suicidal. And it just comes like that. Last week I spent all week in Manchester. I was staying in the Travelodge in Manchester all week, and admittedly after four nights in the Travelodge in Manchester I was starting to feel like Alan Partridge. I mean, all you can eat but from a 10-inch plate. So I had my 12-inch plate. You know what? and I took the trouser press apart and all that. But one night, and no reflection on Travelers, but one night I was sat in a room and I just started to feel suicidal. Because I was alone and you know what, I have these moments where I think, what's the point? You're not doing anything, you're not helping anyone, you have no one in your life. And so I still struggle with those moments. But see, it's that pain that drives me on all the time. And see, it's important to me that all the pain I've been through in my life actually means something. Because when I transitioned, I didn't know what the price would be. And if I'd known what the price was, you know what? I don't know. The price that I paid to be me was so great that if the only thing I get out of it is being me, I don't know if it's worth the price. That's why I do everything I do. You like my starfish story? I'm going to tell everyone. I love the starfish. I've got my starfish. There's a woman walking on the beach, and the beach is covered in starfish. She starts picking them up and throwing them back in the sea. This old lady comes up to me and she says, "You do realise there's miles and miles of beach and millions of starfish? You can't hope to make a difference." She thinks. She bends down, picks up the starfish, throws it back in the sea. She says, "I made a difference to that one. Everything I do is to try and make a difference to one starfish a day." We hear a lot in society about microaggressions, when people push you, people are rude to you, people do all sorts of things. Well, if we can have microaggressions, we can also have micro-kindnesses. Just smiling at someone, saying hello, please and thank you, opening the door for someone. All of us carry pain. All of us carry trauma. All of us have these problems that affect us in different ways. we never ever know how close to the edge someone that we meet could be. Those little kindnesses matter. When I walk down the road and someone says hello to me, I smile. And the thing, smiling is contagious. Smiling. If you smile to someone, they smile back. I was asked earlier today about religion. Now, I'm very spiritual, but I'm not religious. In the book, I talk about my idea of what life after death is. There's all sorts of random stuff in the book. I mean, in the book, you find out how to be a 1980s style wedding photographer. You also find out the 10 most popular girls' names in 1967, and also the top 5 strippers' names. But I talk in there about my idea of what life after death is. And for me, we live on in other people's hearts when we go. And when they go, we live on in the hearts of the people that love them. So for me, life after death is a collective love. And actually, one of the concepts that I've got for another book is about how love is the centre of everything. If I was going to name my religion, I think my religion would be love. Because you look at all the world's religions, all of them at their core have love. What they put around the outside, but at the core there's love. And I mean, the Beatles said love is all you need. And you know what? If there was more of that in the world, then all of the problems would go away. Ending that adversarial sort of greed and all that. Let's just do a bit more of that. And I can't even remember what the question was now. But anyway, yeah. It was something about Brighton. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I banged out in 3 months.
I'm sorry,
Oh.
sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say you're doing more than enough. You're doing well. The biggest thing that I've realised over the years is that there's this little bit of consciousness that is the top of your brain, and then beneath that is so much that we don't control. And that's where those feelings of despair or that this stuff comes from, and you do just have to let it wash over you for a while, and the experience that, yeah, it does go away is a very real one, and I think that's something that connects to trans people and people that aren't, and it's really important to get out and say that, so yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm really looking forward to reading your book. I'm going away for holidays, so where do I get it from?
It's available on the internet at www.sophiecook.me.uk/book. But you can get it here tonight, cash or card. I mean, if you want, I can come on holiday and just read it to you. I've been on a holiday in like 3-4 years, so yeah, I could just come with you and sit next to you and just... Anyway.
I got Meghan Markle coming back. I mean, that's yeah.
She don't talk to. Then again, I don't talk to my dad either. Yeah, actually, one of the things about Not Today is, and that giving myself permission to have those feelings that I have no control over. Actually, I've just recently found that I can apply that to other things in my life. Now, I like to live a full life. Yeah, that's as far as we need to go on that. But there was a couple of things that I do in my love to live a full life that I was beating myself up over. And about a week or so ago, I sat there and I was thinking about it. I was going, you enjoy doing it, and it doesn't hurt anyone. So why are you beating yourself up over it? And you know what? It just makes a real. It's like, why do we spend so much time beating ourselves up? And we all do it. I mean, when I get trolled on social media, people say to me, oh, how do the trolls affect you? And one of my responses is, I've had a lifetime's experience of hurting myself and saying really horrible things to myself. These people are just amateurs.
Wow.
I mean, if they want to know how to hurt me, 5 minutes, buy me a pint. I'll tell them the buttons to push and like. But you know what? They're just stabbing in the dark. I mean, it says more about them than it says about me. I know that I'm fucking awesome. And they don't. So, who's missing it? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just wondering about, I guess,
Sorry about the language, by the way.
just how do you manage, I suppose it's, when you're having a bad day, do you know not to kind of look at social media and look at all the kind of hateful stuff, or?
Well, the first thing I think the question was how do I deal with hate on social media, just in case they couldn't hear. The first thing I discovered when I started getting press coverage was you never ever read the comments.
Oh God, yeah.
Do not read the comments on stories about yourself. Because you know what? I spent a lifetime self-harming. Reading comments on press stories about yourself, that's another form of self-harm. So, yeah, that's the first thing. Don't do that. Second thing is, don't feed the trolls. It's like, if someone's spouting hate at you, there's no point trying to reason with them because they're not coming at you from a place of reason. They just come at you from a place of hate and bigotry. I mean, what I tend to do when I'm abused online is I screen grab it, I report and I block. So my block list on Twitter is like miles long. And the thing is, what I do with the screen grabs is I then share them so that people can see what's going on. I never retweet because that includes the abuser in the conversation. And as far as I'm concerned, they don't deserve a platform. In fact, I've got a hobby. If anyone needs a hobby, I mean, I know knitting's good, you make scarves and shit, but I've got this hobby, and basically what I do is, I've got 5 minutes, go on Twitter. Just search for a certain term that you think bigots might use, and then report loads of them. Just go bigot hunting. Don't wait for them to come to you. Just go out there and find some. Like 10 minutes spare. Like go on, report 20 odd bigots. It's like result. Yeah, I feel like I made a difference to the world. So yeah, if you all go out and do that, it's like, and so yeah, that's. Does that? I mean, does that make me sound like my life is empty?
No, it sounds like Adrian has a whole new weekend hobby.
But yeah, you know what? Abuse is never about you. I spent last week up in Manchester. I did a lot of work with Manchester College, and I spent all week talking to the students there about hate crime. So I did 3.5 days. I did 2 campuses each day. I did 4 sessions each day. I did 14 sessions to a couple of thousand students. And the thing that I told them, and Manchester College has got a very ethnically diverse student body. A lot of black students, a lot of Muslim students, a lot of overseas students. And the big point that I made to them is any kind of hate crime, any kind of race hate, religious hate, homophobia, transphobia, disability hate, it's not about you. It's about the hatred that someone else carries in their heart. It is never about you. You have been targeted because they see you as belonging to this group of people. It's not about you. So when I'm targeted with transphobic abuse, when I'm targeted with all sorts of other things, it's not about me. And quite frankly, if I'm upsetting fascists and bigots, then I'm doing my job wrong. Let's face it, they're not supposed to be my mates. So, anyone else? Oh, go on. You're the one that started speaking. It's like, all they did was the polite thing and put their hand up. It's like, come on, you start speaking, come on.
I'm following what you were saying. It's like when you do have those moments of, I have some of those moments of, oh, I can't anymore, this is too much. and I forget that this will pass, what do you use to bring yourself back to actually thinking, yes, this will pass?
See, one of the things that I did, effectively not today, is putting suicide on my to-do list. And we all know how to do this work, don't we? You have the really big, difficult things, and then you have by staples. Now, there will always be staples to do long before I get around to doing the difficult. Like write a book. Write a book, or do a check of the word count to see how many more words you've got to write. It's like, I did lots of word count checks. It's like, oh look, I've got another 70,000 words to write. But I mean, I'm a great lover of, there's a great productivity tool that I use. It's by a guy called Dave Allen called Get Things Done. And basically, he uses the 4 Ds. Now, the first thing you do is, when you have an idea, you data capture it. Because what it does is it means that you don't have to keep thinking about it. Because by writing it down on your to-do list, what you're doing is you're removing it from your head, so your head doesn't need to remember it, so you don't lose it, and you know it's safe. There's, on my to-do list, I can move on. And then what you do is, all of these ideas you put on your to-do list, you then do the 4 Ds. And I also use this for my email management. So here you go, a little bit. This is in the book as well. So what you do is, the first D is, if it's something you can do within 2 minutes, you do it. Now, well, suicide, a bit complicated. I'm always worried about the person's going to find me something. Yeah. No, it takes, I can't do it in 2 minutes. I've got to wash my hair and shit. So no, I'm not going to. And then, if it's something that someone else can do, you can delegate it. Well, strictly speaking, if I delegate suicide, that's not suicide anymore, it becomes murder at that point, which is slightly problematic. The next one is you delete it. I mean, let's face it, we all get those emails that you look at and it's coming, you don't need to reply. Why do people do like 1-word replies to email and then ping pong bloody emails? Email is supposed to make life easier. Email. What's supposed to be a conversation tool? It's like the M25. The M25 was supposed to bring the traffic out of London, and because the way they built the motorway system, all it did was bring all the motorways into London. So you can't even remember what that D was. I was blethering on.
Delete.
Delete. That's
We've
it.
done do, delete, delegate, delete, and then there's one more.
Yeah. So you delete it, and the thing is, I already know that I can't delete suicide from my head. It's just part of the way I'm wired. It's a result of the traumas I've had in my life. Maybe it's just a result of the way things work in my brain. And then the final D is you defer it. So if it's a task, you go, well, you know what, I'll do that next week. But I've now deferred suicide till a month after I die. You know what, that's when I'm going to think about it. Yeah, it's on my to-do list, but I've got other shit I've got to do. I've got to buy staples, I've got to do a word count. So it's now like, you know what, yeah, I'll think about that a month after I'm dead. And by putting it on that to-do list, you don't have to think about it all the time. And I just love the fact that I've managed to pervert a productivity tool and use the power of procrastination to keep myself safe. It's like, gotcha, procrastinating. Well, you know what, I would, but yeah. Oh, is that the time? Yeah, yeah. And that's that. I mean, I'm being glib, but actually that's what's worked for me. And see, one of the problems is that I never had control about when I went to that dark place. But now I've got control about how I feel about it. And actually, you know what, making fun of it is one of the things that gives me more control over it. So, yeah. Celia!
I was going to say, it's interesting the comment about passing. You said it was a form of being a prophet. So
Yeah.
The something you might want to do with a chat with the beers and like, I've got some friends that probably wouldn't agree, which is perfectly fine because everyone will have different opinions.
And the thing is, you know what? You can have 100 people in the room that have 100 different opinions.
Yeah, exactly. It's individual experience, and it's a comparison with a different experience for that. February is LGBTQ plus History Month. So I asked my members, I'm from the Brighton Chemist Corps, so I asked my members to give me names for one person for each day of the month. And you can and there was the question was someone that inspired them or they think they advance the conversation about diversity and so you will see we come up in next week. So every day. So you can ask what was
So my ears that's why my ears were burning.
among other things.
What are you trying to say?
But what interesting is to reverse the question to you. So, who was for you someone that, one sense inspired, but you think that it was great to be as a beacon or point of reference when it came to part of the conversation?
Actually, that's a really interesting question. You know, I was saying about this young people's LGBT program that I was a guest on today. They actually asked that question. And the thing is, I know that role models are a great thing. But see, I think we can put too much emphasis on external things. As I've already said, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. But if I was close to any religion, it would be Buddhism. Because the thing I love about Buddhism is it's not about this bearded bloke that lives in the clouds that sort of sorts everything out for you. It's about what's inside you. Buddha lives within all of us. It's just about reaching enlightenment so you can actually find the Buddha that was in you. And I have this mantra that I use when I'm doing difficult or scary things. And that mantra is, all I need is within me now. All the strength I need is within me now. All the power I need is within me now. All the knowledge I need is within me now. All the bravery I need is within me now. And I strongly believe that we should go and be our own role models. We should be our own inspiration. Because, you know what, other people can't fix the world for us. The only person that can fix our world for us is us. I spent 20 years in a relationship with someone that great music now says, we'll all go join them in a minute for a cry. I spent 20 years in a relationship with someone who cared about me but just couldn't get through my pain, and ultimately the only person that could ever save me was me. And it just took me finding that way to get in there to actually save me. So I say be your own inspiration. Anyone else? Or are we going to finish there? Those were good words to end on. Oh no, let's do it.
I'm going to leave the line because I think everybody will love this. Can you just give us your definition of heaven and hell?
My definition of heaven and hell. You obviously know what I'm going to say.
I do. I've heard you say it, and I want you to share it if you would. Because it's beautiful. If you can't remember, I'll tell you.
See, that's the problem. I make shit up as I go along. I don't always remember it.
Delegate it.
Yeah, but then he's going to get the punchline. Oh, yeah, right. So, knew, I'd just forgotten.
I've been holding that since you told me.
That's because it's profound.
It is.
Shit. Obviously, I come up with so much profound stuff, I'm bloody forgetting myself. Yeah, I'm going to write that down now so I remember it, put it in the next book. And it ties into what I was saying earlier about what my idea of life after death is. Because I don't believe in the beardy guy in the clouds. Morgan Freeman. Thanks, popular culture. And I believe in love. And I believe in this idea that we live on in someone's heart. Basically, heaven is when you live on in the hearts of people that love you. Your children, your family, the people that you touch in a positive way. And hell is the opposite. Hell is when, after your death, you only live on in people's negative thoughts. So, when you look at some of the truly nasty people that have died over recent years, well, obviously they're living in some version of hell. I honestly believe that we live on in that positive version of people's hearts. It was probably better last time.
It was better last time.
I obviously said, see, that's a problem when you're just riffing. You sort of, like I said, I just make it up as I go along. So, anyway, now that my good finish ended. Right, anyone got any other questions before we get drunk? Smash the place up. Don't smash the place up. Don't smash the place up. Right. Any other questions? If you've enjoyed the show tonight, my name's Sophie Cook. Follow me on social media, which is @SophieCookTalks. If you didn't like it, my name's Jermaine Greer.